If you're a business owner or senior manager, you probably had more than enough about all the wonderful opportunities awaiting you in the era of digitalization.
Whether it is big data, cloud, data science, or whatever buzzword is currently trendy.
If you would like to hear someone dissecting these claims and showing you what it actually takes to improve business processes, you're in the right place.
This is Between Data and Risk, where we discuss real-life examples of what works and what doesn't in the world of business operations.
Hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian, and with me is my co-host, Artur Guja, Cognition Shared Solutions Chief Risk and Strategy Officer.
Hello.
Welcome to second episode of Between Data and Risk. Today, we'll be talking about surviving paradigm shifts. We finished the last episode where we spoke about data on the note that working with data, you need to make sure that your assumptions are not outdated. And discussing the last episode, we realized that this is something which is very true in the world of risk as well. So today, I would like to ask you, Artur, about your experience of working as a trader in 2008. I know that you managed to remain profitable in your operations as a trader during this time. And to my knowledge, it was a success of your risk management skills. So how about you tell us what was so risky? Why so many banks at the large failed to mitigate them? And how did you manage to stay sane?
Yeah, certainly. Although I don't think we should go very deep into the technicalities of the 2008 crisis. If anyone wants to have a good look at the general impact, they should definitely watch the film The Big Short. It's a great depiction of what happened and some of the reasons. But I think we should talk about the as you said, the paradigm shifts, the outdating of assumptions. I'll give you a few practical examples of that. I was working back then as a trader for one of the quite significant European banks, and I was mostly working with products based on the values of shares of companies, but I was also working with interest rates, with some FX, some commodities. So quite a wide portfolio. And I was handed just shortly before 2008, I was handed the kind of responsibility for managing quite a big book of trades. It was roughly $4.5 billion worth of trades, of which about three quarters, roughly, it was 3.2 billion, was in one trade, which depended on the value of the world indices. So Euro stocks, S&P 500 and Nikkei. So there's three big share indices, plus long-term interest rates. And we're talking long-term as in 30 years. And I started looking at this shortly before 2008, and there were quite a lot of assumptions going into pricing of that. There was quite a complicated model I set with our quants, so the mathematicians who actually devised the model tried to learn a lot about it. And as 2008 started to unravel, I remember sitting down with one manager once, and he said, "Why are you reviewing the calibration of the model every day? You know, we used to do it every month, maybe once every 2 months. Why are you doing this every week, every day now?" And I said, "Because things are changing, you know." And he was a very intelligent guy, so he quickly grasped what was going on. But it was that to that extent. One very kind of palpable example: people who were trading interest rates at that time could tell you that historically the volatility of long-term interest rates, so the measure of variability of long-term interest rates, was roughly at the level of 11-12% per annum. at that time it started going up, and it reached levels of around 38-40%. So if you look at the graph, it goes flat and then suddenly spikes, and it went flat for years. It's not like it was a couple of months. It went flat for years and then spiked. So these were massive changes, and all the models needed to be reviewed, and all the assumptions need to be reviewed.
But to my understanding, that's true for any kind of model. You need to, at least from the data science perspective, it is, I think, especially true for all the machine learning models, where you assume that the future will hold the same patterns that the past held. So how does it translate to risk, like, and quantifiable risk of losing money and avoiding losing money by blindly following the belief that the patterns are the same?
Well, it's funny that every single financial ad that you see or you hear it, you tend to see this ad on that past may not be an indication of the future, right? And yet, pretty much all modeling, including financial modeling, is based on the assumption that the future will be, at least to a certain extent, like the past, right? So it is it there are several things you can do, and several things you should keep in mind to do it correctly, or at least to minimize the risk. One is that you should only hold the assumptions that you think are reasonably good, and let go of the ones that are a bit shaky. This may kind of be a very, very short way to put something very complex.
But
You can
how,
assume.
how do you distinguish between solid and shaky? If you said this volatility was at level of 11% for years and years and years and years and years, it sounds pretty solid to me. So
Yes, but when it starts changing, you sit up and listen. You sit up and react, right? You don't fall into complacency and say, "Oh, it's 13, it's 14, it will come down. Oh, it's 20, it will come down. It must come down." You don't fall into this complacency mindset. Another thing is that you should see you should start looking for patterns, obviously, but you shouldn't overseek. And this is, as a data scientist, overfitting of models is something that you'll be very familiar with. So don't look for new patterns immediately,
it's
especially in.
Overfitting is not exactly about that, but very often you try to uh, find something, and machine learning is very good at finding something. You will put the chair inside a bit of carrots and some oil, some car oil, and you will get some soup out of it. Not necessarily very healthy, but
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that we do not mix, because when you overfit, you have your situation very precisely described, and it's all about the precision, that you will believe that it will be ex- future will be very, very exactly reflecting the past. What you are describing is finding some trends, weak
No, this is
correlations, and where these correlations are, let's say, purely mathematical, not.
not necessarily. It's exactly what I'm talking about: overfitting data to the current, current trend, where the current trend is not really a trend. It's breaking. So there's an old adage in risk management, and which I think is very widely applicable. It's better to be approximately right than precisely wrong. And if you fit your model to the current market,
Mhm.
and but the market is currently in a paradigm shift, it hasn't yet found itself, and it's you fit it to mid shift, it works correctly, but it works correctly only for the next half an hour.
That's overfitting. Yes, that's you fit all your data points perfectly, and in 20 minutes you can throw your model away. Which reminds me of modeling of COVID, where people were trying to fit the data as it flew into machine learning models, and they were fitting functions to the changing numbers, but in a couple of days these models were exactly wrong. I think it would be, if somebody's interested in the topic, in episode 1 we spoke a lot about it. Let's get back to risk and 2008.
Yeah. So I remember that we were fitting the models, and we're not talking about small money here. It was 3.2 billion, which we were trying to manage and manage the risk, safeguard the risk. And I remember I was working with two great risk managers back then, Jay Schulman and Geraint Roberts, who were helping me devise scenarios to get some intuition behind what this model was going to do. We had a few stress test scenarios devised, and I think there was about 8 or 10 of them. And they were running the model through those test stress scenarios, and we were trying to devise how it's going to behave, because it was quite a complex hybrid trade. There was very little straightforward about it. And I remember we got into some cases where all the stress test scenarios were coming out positive. Now the model was telling us that whatever happens from now on, we're going to make money. And we were looking at this and saying, no, that's something's not right.
So if you want to if you want to win at the casino, the roulette, always put your money on black, and you cannot lose. Unless
it's even worse. It's telling you put it on red, black, don't put it at all, you'll win, you'll be fine. It's this kind of feeling, right, where it tells you whatever happens, you'll be fine, you'll hit the jackpot. And it turns out that some of the assumptions behind the model, some very basic assumptions, were going out of the window very quickly. So we had to rethink what we were doing, and at some point we were flying a bit blind, because the assumptions in the model being broken, we had to kind of almost feel our way in the dark about it. The way to stay sane is I think, go back to basics, go back to what you know, and try to build up your knowledge from that. What we did back then is we knew some basic kind of truths, about mathematical truth about what the model needed to do, right? What the first derivatives of the price were going to be versus certain variables, what the second derivative. We didn't know about complex scenarios, which we were trying to devise, but we knew some things that mathematically didn't change, and we started building up from that. Which it didn't allow us to perform complex analysis, but it allowed us to verify the answers that we were getting from various combinations, and try to weed out those that were obviously wrong. So in a sense, we were weeding out the things that would lead us to being precisely wrong, and then gathering the ones which were building up the picture to being approximately right.
So if you would like to summarize where we are, so let's say we have a paradigm shift, paradigm change. So we have our business,
which we are in right now, right?
That's why I would like to spell it out. That's why I think this topic is so current and applicable. So we have our businesses running along some paths, and we see that the things are changing. The sales predictions are no longer valid. The prognostics that we use is starting to fail. What do we do besides running, around like headless chickens and screaming?
We go back to basics, right? And this is something that for some reason I see people very reluctant to do. but ask yourself what is it that for certain doesn't change, right? What doesn't change is what you're doing, what you actually see your people doing. You should have your processes, your business mapped out to such an extent that you should see the actions. The decisions might change, but the actions that stem from those decisions should remain roughly constant. If not, you need to review them, obviously, and then start reviewing your assumptions one by one. Why are you doing this? Is it still applicable? If the purpose of your business, of your process has is no longer applicable, you need to review it. Go back to those basics and ask yourself the right questions. This is I think that a very, very solid piece of advice that is also very widely applicable and for some reason not very widely taken.
Oh, common sense is not that common, because what you are saying is like formalizing a common sense. I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, and also avoid any rush, spur of the moment, unplanned, not thought through decisions. Another example I can give you of kind of an interesting markets event is 2010. So let's fast forward 2 years. 2010, there was something that's not as widely known as the 2008 financial crisis. It was called the flash crash. It lasted only about 38 minutes, and it's a very interesting event nonetheless. It happened exactly on 6th of May 2010, and at 2:45 EDT, which is the Eastern Time Zone in US, the index that kind of averages the prices of 500 biggest US companies, the S&P 500, it crashed. It had one of the largest crashes ever, right?
Why?
As I say, it.
Why?
This is a very good question. It's a very good question. There are many theories, but we'll get back to that. Let's describe the event first. So the index was at hovering at a value of about 10,000 points at the time, and it crashed in those 30 something minutes. It crashed about 1,000 points down, and then recovered. So obviously a lot of money changed hands, and a lot of winners and losers. It was actually an unprecedented, almost, or so people thought, event where the exchange actually broke some trades. It canceled some trades using various algorithms, because those trades were completely outside of any paradigm that was previously thought possible in the market. So you ask why. There are many theories. There were many reports coming out, because obviously it was important for the smooth running of market to find out why this happens. And the biggest culprit that was blamed was high frequency traders. So traders who run programs that automatically put in even hundreds, thousands of orders every second to exchanges. There was a book written by Michael Lewis, Flash Boys, precisely about this event and about high frequency trading. And they were blamed because they were they were putting so many orders in the market, canceling those orders, doing various things that were not fully understood by many people, and they were blamed for exacerbating what could be a very small move into a crash. There was also one person was actually.
Does it really make sense? Because to my understanding, high frequency trading didn't end, and we didn't observe these sudden jumps. And to my understanding, if it's algorithmic trading, you have algorithms which are competing against each other. If they had an ability to generate such results, they would more often, looking how many trades there are per second from different high frequency traders, the, let's say, probability space is quite thoroughly tested every, I don't know,
Oh,
5
you'd hope
minutes or
so.
so. No, by the algorithms, I don't hope so. I'm afraid so. Like
You'd hope so. I think there's. I think you believe that the algorithms are doing what they're supposed to be doing, right?
I believe that algorithms are trying to do what they are supposed to be doing. And if they are poorly written or poorly tested, a lot of different funny things around it. So I believe that they try to break the system 6 ways till Sunday every single minute. So if the system would be susceptible to high frequency trading errors, we would observe it more than once a decade.
Funny you should say that. Let me continue a bit. So there was one person indicted for actually they were arrested and sentenced for and banned from trading for life for their part in the flash crash. That trader was actually from UK, although there was a lot of dispute because it was a lone guy, not even working for a major bank. He had his own fund which he was running from his basement. So there was a lot of dispute whether he was just a scapegoat or whether he really had his fingers in it. But then there was another report. It basically stated that flash crashes actually do occur. They occur very frequently. It's just not to that extent. High frequency trading has actually caused much more volatility and these intermittent spikes in many markets. There were obviously some counterbalances put in place immediately after the flash crash. So there were circuit breakers introduced. Why do we talk about this in terms of paradigm shifts? There was a certain assumption about how the market operates up to the flash crash, and then the markets had to react after the fact. So exchanges put in circuit breakers that were supposed to, if not prevent, then at least mitigate flash crashes. They basically worked in such a way that if the price deviated from a certain reference price too fast, they would put a stop, like a 5-minute stop on the trading to let the market take a breather and then regain sanity. There was additional control. There were additional controls put around high frequency trading. High frequency trading has actually decreased. I have some statistic here. So there was it accounted for about 60% of trading in 2010 and 2011, and it fell to about 28% by the end of 2011. So it actually did decrease quite significantly, high frequency trading, because of the restrictions. There were also some additional prohibitions put in place, things like spoofing, layering, and front running.
How about to explain it? How do you explain what are these and how they connect to risks that we may incur?
It essentially, if you think about high frequency trading, what it does, because it puts a lot of orders through and then also cancel those orders. Spoofing essentially means putting a lot of orders at various crazy prices into the market and then canceling them before they can get executed, just to create a false sense in the market. basically manipulate the market. Layering, for example, is the same, except you create false orders at certain layers of prices and then cancel them and let the market kind of chase you. Front running is a very kind of nasty practice of putting your orders into the exchange before your client's orders, and then hoping that you can get the good prices when you know that when you have insider knowledge, essentially, that there are some orders going in that will be then executed at worse prices.
But
so
front running is a known practice. It's not specific to high frequency trading, I think. It's just illegal activity.
No, but in high frequency trading, it got certain kind of new possibilities because of the speed at which it was executed. So there were new flavors of it. And obviously, they were banned after as an aftermath of the flash crash. So there was a big shift, and some of the trading had to change because of this. And the approach to trading had to change, and approach to risk management. So one of the things that the financial regulators, for example, changed. They started looking at high frequency trading as almost a separate branch of trading. And I remember when I was working for a number of banks, we actually had questions from regulators how we were managing risk, how we planned to manage risk separately for those kind of activities. So it kind of became recognized as a separate activity on its own, with its own category of risks and potential problems. And that's why I'm kind of going back to your statement that algorithms are being tested. I think with this kind of thing where you've got...
That's not what I said. I said the algorithms are testing the space of possible solutions thoroughly. So I'm not talking about testing the algorithms. Absolutely.
You're
I'm
talking about algorithms probing the market,
the reality.
But
yes,
that's exactly the problem, that the algorithms are reacting to the market, but the space of the possibilities that the algorithms have at that speed is pretty much unfathomable and untestable by the humans who try to operate the...
And that's what I was exactly trying to say, is that algorithms probe the possibility space of what can be done to the market before the market will realize that somebody is screwing with it so often that I would expect with flash sales. Okay, if the high speed frequency trading dropped from 60% to 20, as you said, it's a gigantic difference. So maybe it accounts for the delay in another flash crash and also the circuit breakers that you mentioned as well. But I'm listening to this fascinating story and I'm thinking, okay, so I'm running a business, a consultancy, and we work with clients. How can we apply the lessons learned? Because I don't think most of the businesses work in space of high frequency trading. So what are the lessons that we could take? Because by now I know that if I see the market changing, first I should get back and try to see what I can understand exactly about my processes, which I have mapped out. And the second thing that we said, we shouldn't do any sudden moves and unplanned moves, and following the gut may pose a risk of its own. So what are the lessons learned for us?
Very good. Let's fast forward another 9 years to 30th of May 2019. There was a very interesting speech given by Dave Ramsden, Deputy Governor of Markets and Banking for Bank of England. It was given in Inverness Chamber of Commerce. And in that speech, Dave Ramsden explained how he thought the lessons from the financial crisis and from various other kind of market events could be applied to increasing resilience in economy. And I think that the lessons also apply to businesses. He kind of drew three conclusions. The first is that the kind of the scale of shocks. He talked about the scale of shocks from before the. From before the 2008 crash, he compared it to 2008 itself, and he kind of concluded that the shocks before were obviously much smaller, which led to a certain complacency and a certain belief that UK as a market had resilience built in, which obviously turned out to be false, since 2008 hit UK rather larger than more most countries, because of the concentration of financial markets. Kind of he also he drew the lesson that it's not necessarily obviously past is not a good guide to the future. So that was the kind of the main lesson he drew. The second was about what constitutes resilience. You have to look at resilience the right way, and that is you cannot look at resilience as your preparedness for what you've seen before, right? You should look at resilience as something that how prepared are you for the unexpected. And this is what we, I think we've talked about this a lot with our clients. Don't just think about things that have happened and whether you're prepared for the repeat. Go wild, right? Think about dinosaurs running around your office, your clients being, taken abducted by aliens to another planet. What would you do then, right? And obviously, some of these might sound absurd, but then you scale back. And it's much easier to scale back and think about some reasonable scenarios.
I remember the example with aliens, but the idea was that this crazy scenario allowed people to think, okay, what if we will start suddenly and unexpectedly lose clients? The aliens is here just for fun and games, but the situation where you are quickly losing a client base, whatever reason, is a very realistic one. So for those who are hopefully listening to us, this wild scenarios is not just for the sake of having some fun. They have, if you can draw conclusions like, okay, so if the aliens will come and we will have series of abductions, it's not about the abductions, it's about how they will impact
the impact on your business. Exactly, right?
And then will it be flood? Will it be, I don't know, financial crisis? People just losing interest, or your failed innovation which didn't get track, or some PR disaster? Whatever the reason, you will be prepared for fast outflow of the clients. I'm not sure if I can come up with any good idea for dinosaurs in the office, but maybe
it's business continuity scenario, right? It's a good one.
Did they eat your employees, or they were there by night? Did they eat the food from your fridge and run away?
They had specific taste for your hard disk, so make backups. But I would expand slightly on the conclusion from that speech. Something that again we always advise our clients: don't think only about first order effects. True resilience comes from thinking about second and third order effects. It's fairly easy to come up with a scenario which says, what if aliens abduct your clients? Because that's easy translatable from a joke scenario into a real scenario of you start losing clients for whatever reason. Think about what happens if you've got suppliers, right? And suddenly aliens abduct their their employees, for example, right? Think about what will happen if your suppliers are not able to provide you services. Think about what happens if your clients lose their clients. If you're a business to business provider, right? You may not lose your clients directly, but your clients may suddenly, have problems with their cash flow. What if your clients have problems with their cybersecurity? Third-party risk management is a big field, and it's largely unexplored, I think, or underexplored. Think about second, third order impacts, and you can get into some very interesting conclusions. Finally, we come to the third kind of lesson from the speech given by the Deputy Governor of Bank of England, and that is he said that they've been tracking the developments too narrowly. They looked at a certain set of metrics, which was telling them, what they thought they needed to see about the development of the economy. That and then they learned that that wasn't enough. So think broadly about how you observe your the performance and the reliability, the resilience of your company. Is it just sales? Is it just cash flow? Think. If you think about scenarios broadly enough, you then start thinking, okay, if that scenario happens, how can I detect it early, right? Let's go into a very simple second order scenario. What if there's a cyber attack at your suppliers, right? Your data is at risk. You cannot say this doesn't affect you. It's your suppliers. They have your data. So how can you detect it early? Well, you should have in place some mechanisms for your suppliers informing you about these things. Watching the news is after the fact. If it's in the media, your clients already know about this. Your clients know that you have a problem. You should know about the problem earlier than your clients. So have in place certain policies, certain agreements about this kind of notification with your suppliers. That's just a simple example, but watch the performance, the metric much more broadly than just look, okay, my company is doing well because the cash flow is good. And that's obviously cash flow is very important, as we know. But it's and the broad look at resilience. One good example of quite broad look at resilience is economic policy uncertainty index. I quite like this index because it shows you a kind of almost lateral thinking way of approaching uncertainty. It's an index that's compiled for many countries and also a global. You can look at it in the website policyuncertainty.com. And how do you think you measure policy uncertainty?
How often
I know
it changes? How often it changes?
It actually goes beyond that. They look at newspapers and how often articles with the three words policy, uncertainty, and economy, those three words, how often they appear together in an article, right? And they look across the national press for the countries. And it's interesting that you may think, okay, press, maybe there are media with
It's
various.
But
it averages out quite nicely, right?
Except maybe totalitarian countries where the press is controlled. But well, hey ho.
So if you look at countries with fairly free press, it just works, and you look at the graphs and they correlate very nicely with certain events. It's quite interesting to see that on the global index, the 2008 actually didn't matter that much. It was 2011 to 2013 that had much more significant impact. So the index, which is 100 based, it went to about 220 points in 2012, 2013. Currently, it's about 300 points. We are living in a paradigm shift, and we are living in uncertain times. And this kind of, I know no one who listens to this, or no one who is even half conscious, needs to be told that we are living in uncertain times, but it kind of proves the point.
Okay, so let's try to get back maybe to some lessons learned, but we can adjust, because like it's
look at your emails that circulate around the company. I don't mean, obviously start spy on your on your employees, but just have a look at the reports that come to you as a senior manager, and pick certain combinations of words. Pick them a priori, so you don't kind of start looking for but pick certain combinations of words and look for them in the reports. It's a fairly easy exercise, right? You can even write, ask your IT people to write a quick script that will scan the reports for certain combinations of words, and see how they correlate to certain events in your company, right? And this may be a fairly kind of simple but quite interesting exercise that you can run at low cost, and see how the communication actually is trying to tell you something that maybe the sentences are a bit round, and they try to go about, beating about the bush, but certain keywords will be there, right? It's a fairly simple exercise.
So the design the metrics for your. I think the good summary is related to the resilience that we mentioned, and being prepared not for only what happened, because the lightning rarely strikes twice in the same place, but into categories of problems and categories of effects which may have completely different causes. I think when we worked with financial companies and their resilience, the key phrase that was used, I think, by FCA is severe but plausible scenario. So there is no need to plan for the sun to expand prematurely and burning Earth to cinder, but the series of floods and big impact of the climate change could be worth considering. So plan for unexpected.
Plan for the unexpected. Go back to basics when the unexpected happens. Go back to what you know. Don't try to guess, because that rarely works. Don't overfit data.
I think this is still still something that, in my mind, would require some further clarification, because I'm coming back to this 2008 that we started. Everybody knew for dozens of years that the property prices will be rising. I think in 2007, if you would ask anyone, what do you know about the markets? The answer will be the properties will rise. How do you define this? We are talking about the paradigm shift, let me remind you. We are not talking about, let's say, unexpected events like this flash crash, where the paradigm is, I would say, shaken, maybe. But we are talking about things like it was an introduction of a completely new methodology and completely new technological advancement. So it is a paradigm shift in a sense. But go back to what you know. This is something that I think I would like to explain. Like, when do I know and when do I assume? This is.
It's an interesting question. Yes, go back to what you know, not what you think you know. Go back to some mathematical truth, and question them. everyone, you're absolutely right. Everyone in 2007, and it's very nicely illustrated in the film I already mentioned, The Big Short. They were going around actually asking people what do they think about the housing market, and people were in denial. They were saying no, we can still refinance very easily. It will be okay. It will be okay. So being in denial is not good. But one thing that people should have realized that they do know is that if you borrow money from a bank, you have to give it back at some point, right? Or you will face foreclosure. That's not an assumption. That's a given. What people thought that they knew, it was that they could refinance very easily. Now that was an assumption. That those two, I think, illustrate very nicely the distinction between a given assumption and people. Exactly 2008 happened to such an extent. Maybe we talked about the Gaussian cupola and the mathematical assumptions that were broken, but in people's minds, very very distance from math, this is what exacerbated the problem. People have they've mistakenly used assumptions as the ground from which they were on which they were still standing while it was shifting under them. It is hard, and it requires a lot of introspection and questioning yourself. But as a risk manager, I always question the assumptions. I question my own assumptions. I question my clients' assumptions.
It's worse.
And I think it's just good.
You question even my assumptions, and that is unacceptable.
I know it's annoying for you, but I promise always to do it. It's the one thing where we start working together. I told you I will always ask you questions. They may not be nice questions, and you may not always have the answers, but I will ask you questions. And that's why we haven't so far gone very very far wrong. It's go really ask yourself what you know and whether these are assumptions. Plan for a wide variety of scenarios. And these may sound like platitudes, but as we said before, common sense is not that common, and it's something that's, I think, worth mentioning. Be approximately right rather than precisely wrong. So look for answers that give you some insight. You don't have to know exactly what's going on, but have some certainty, some solid ground to stand on once in a while, so you can reassess.
I would like to drop in. Can I chip in? Because you also you mentioned in your tirade that it is very important to look broadly at the situation, and one of the conclusions drawn by the VIP from Bank of England was that they looked at the reality too narrowly. This is a topic that we will probably touch very often, but do not limit yourself to your targets. If you are measuring the performance of your company, if you measure the events around your company, your targets are not really good measures. Targets is something that people will be aiming to optimize to and try to maximize or minimize. You should have number of measures which are not, like Artur mentioned, a measure of like combination of words in emails, but it can be, I don't know, in sales it may be not only number of closed sales, but number of successful connections. If they change suddenly, then it might be information something changed on the market, something changed in my team. There is some risk which should be probably addressed. If you will try to optimize for number of connections, people will be probably calling their colleague, says, "Hi, I'm good, bye." Or just making, calling the time telling service if it still exists. So have measures which are independent from what people try to achieve to get their bonus.
Yes, and this is what you keep telling me very often, and that a measure when it starts becoming a target, it stops being a good measure. I think I finally start understanding this, this adage after you've repeated it so many times. But it is a good one. So yeah, there you have it. We've got some interesting lessons based on the 2008 financial market crash and 2010 flash crash. And some lessons brought to us in a 2019 speech by Dave Ramsden, Deputy Governor for Markets and Banking from Bank of England. I think all of these put together can be very nicely just drawn out into this common sense approach of resilience, being prepared, and living through any paradigm shift. And I think that the final lesson is that you need to apply those before the paradigm shift and not during. This is why you press the clutch before you shift gears and not during, because you have to prepare for the shift. You cannot just hope that you will be able to react correctly during the shift. This is, I think this is crucial. I think this is all that we have time for.
Thank you very much, Artur.
Hopefully it was of use to someone. Thank you for listening.
If you want to find out more about paradigm shifts, head to the Paradigm Shift podcast hosted by Ashish Kundra and Zain Salim. You will find there some candid conversations with people building the future, about the breakthrough moments and hard-earned insights that shaped people, products, and technologies.
And for some very educational risk management disaster stories, listen to Dr. Andrew's thoughts in his podcast My Worst Investment Ever, where he interviews investors and financial titans from around the world who share their heartbreaking tales of investment misfortune. As usual, the links to both of these sources will be in the notes to this episode.
Also, don't miss the next one, where we'll be talking to Yuchen Chan, the founder of Redpoint Holdings, entrepreneur and investor, about his experiences in nurturing startups.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or visit bdr.show to find out more about future episodes and guests. You can also check out cognition.llc for more information on Cognition shared solutions, our services, and other events hosted by us.
For now, it's thank you from myself, your friendly neighborhood data guy, Dr. Marian, and my co-host, Artur.
Thank you.